There is a specific kind of morning on First Take that announces itself before anyone has said anything of real substance. A quality to the studio air, a texture to the silence between segments, something in the way one of the hosts is sitting that tells you, if you have been watching long enough and carefully enough, that the normal architecture of the program is about to get completely dismantled. I have been watching long enough. I have been watching carefully enough. And from the first moment of this particular broadcast, from the very first second that Shannon Sharpe's face appeared on my screen, I knew that what I was about to watch was not going to be a regular episode of First Take. Something was different. Shannon was different. He had the specific, controlled, almost preternatural stillness of a person who has been sitting on something for days and has arrived at the exact morning when the sitting is finally over. He was not performing composure. He was experiencing it, not the real kind that only exists when a person is genuinely certain that what they are about to do is going to work exactly as planned. And Stephen A. Smith, God bless him, had absolutely no idea what was coming. Hey, what's up everyone? Real quick before we get into everything, that like button is literally what determines if this reaches hundreds or thousands of fans. Takes 1 second, but makes a huge impact on the channel's growth. Just smash that like button right now. It's the easiest thing you can do, but honestly, the biggest way to support this content, every single like pushes this further, so hit it now. The show opened, and Shannon did something I have genuinely never seen him do in the standard format. He spoke before Molly had fully finished her opening. Not rudely, not aggressively, but with the urgency of a man who has been holding a sentence for 72 hours and cannot reasonably be expected to hold it for even 30 more seconds. He said that he had information this morning, information that he had been sitting on, that he had verified, that he had stress tested against everything he knew about the league and the market and the organizational situations involved. That was going to require Stephen A. Smith to publicly eat every single word, every syllable, every inference of every statement he had made about the Los Angeles Lakers over the past 3 weeks. He said it with the economy of language that comes from someone who has practiced it until the phrasing is exactly right. Stephen A. did what he always does when someone challenges him in his own studio. He performed the kind of total confidence that operates as a preemptive counter-argument, filling the space before the actual argument arrives with so much certainty and volume that the actual argument, when it comes, has to fight through it to land. He said it was impossible. He said his Lakers analysis had been sound, was sound, remained sound, and could not be invalidated by anything Shannon had gathered from any human being in his professional network. He talked about the Lakers situation, the transitional moment, the organizational questions, the competitive window, as though he were reading from notes he had reviewed that morning. And then he went further, because Stephen A. always goes further, always finds the extra step that makes the inevitable fall a little more dramatic. He said, if you have a piece of information that genuinely and specifically proves that I was wrong about the Los Angeles Lakers' ability to attract a player of LaMelo Ball's caliber, I will resign from First Take on live television right now. This moment, effective immediately. He said it with both hands flat on the desk and his eyes steady, the physical posture of a man who has committed to a position so completely that retreat is no longer a conceptual option. Shannon looked at Molly. He took one breath, and then he said, "Roll the tape." The production room played a clip from precisely 2 weeks and 3 days prior. Stephen A. Smith at the same desk, in the same studio, with the same cameras and the same lights, saying with complete and unambiguous clarity that the Los Angeles Lakers were not and would never be positioned to attract a player of LaMelo Ball's caliber and profile. He did not say it was unlikely. He did not say it would be difficult. He said never. He used the specific and absolute word never, and he built a supporting architecture around it. The organizational moment was wrong. The competitive window did not match LaMelo's timeline. The situation in Charlotte did not naturally point to Los Angeles, and anyone claiming otherwise was operating on wishful thinking rather than actual information from inside the league. He said all of this with the specific conviction he reserves for things he considers beyond reasonable debate. The clip lasted approximately 28 seconds. Every second of it was airtight, clear, and completely devastating in the context of what was about to follow. The clip ended. The studio was quiet in the way that rooms get quiet when everyone in them is waiting for the same thing simultaneously. And then Shannon said in a voice so calm it was almost conversational that his sources had confirmed, not speculated, not suggested, confirmed that LaMelo Ball had essentially finalized his decision to join the Los Angeles Lakers, that the framework was in place, that the organizational conversations had reached the stage where calling it done was not premature. The camera went to Stephen A. Smith. And here's the part I have been thinking about ever since I watched it, the part I keep going back to when I want to remind myself why live television is still capable of producing something genuinely unrepeatable. Stephen A. Smith's face, in the 5 seconds after Shannon finished speaking, was doing something that Stephen A. Smith's face almost never does in a professional broadcast context. It was doing nothing. Not in the sense that it was blank or empty. It was doing nothing in the sense that all the machinery that normally runs his facial expressions had momentarily gone offline, leaving behind a face that was simply a face receiving information rather than a face performing the reception of information. There was no theatrical shock. There was no immediate pivot to the counter argument. There was no deployment of the raised eyebrow or the confident half smile or any of the dozen other micro expressions he uses to signal that he is about to say something that will reframe everything that just happened. There was just a face, a human face, sitting with a thing it had just been told, while the man who told it waited with the patience of someone who knew he had already won and had chosen for the moment to let the winning breathe. Then it started, the recovery. And I want to spend real time on the recovery, because even when Stephen A. Smith is recovering from something he cannot ultimately survive, the recovery itself is genuinely impressive and worth understanding on its own terms. He began with what I would call the temporal contextualization defense, the argument that statements made at a specific moment in time must be evaluated against the information available at that specific moment, and that the emergence of new information subsequently did not retroactively invalidate the original analysis, but rather represented the evolution of a situation that was genuinely fluid at the time of the original statement. He made this argument smoothly and quickly, moving through the component parts at a pace that communicated competence rather than desperation. It was, in its way, a well-constructed defense. Shannon said, "You used the word never, Stephen A. He said it once. He did not follow it with anything. He just let the word never sit in the air between them and did the most patient possible version of waiting, Stephen A." Pivoted to the distinction between rhetorical emphasis and analytical prediction. The argument that when a debater uses absolute language in the context of analysis, that language is understood by any sophisticated listener to be emphatic rather than literally absolute, that never in the context of sports analysis is a rhetorical device rather than a prophecy, and that holding him to the literal meaning of never was a misreading of how professional media discourse operates. He made this argument with real verbal dexterity, constructing it quickly enough that it sounded more persuasive on initial hearing than it actually was. Shannon said, "Molly, did he not say never?" Molly, maintaining the composed professionalism that makes her so good at this job, said, "Yes, he said never." Stephen A. tried the pivot to analysis. If this is happening, here's why it makes basketball sense. Here is what it means for the franchise. Here is the contextual reading that shows his broader Lakers analysis was still directionally correct, even if this specific element had developed differently. He made arguments about the fit, about the organizational moment, about what LaMelo's arrival would mean for the franchise's trajectory. He made these arguments genuinely and with real substance because Stephen A. Smith, even when he is losing a specific argument, is still one of the most substantive sports analysts working in the medium. Shannon let him make all of them, and then, with the timing of a person who has been holding the same sentence for several minutes and has decided now is the exact right moment, he said, "So now you believe the Lakers can attract LaMelo Ball, Stephen A." said, "Given the information you have provided, it is clear that the situation has developed in a way that I did not anticipate." Shannon said, "Say yes or no. Can the Lakers attract a player of LaMelo Ball's caliber?" The pause was longer than the earlier silence. Longer and more visible, and then Stephen A. said, "Yes." And then, because he is too good at this to stop there, and I was wrong to say never, he said it the way a person says something that costs them something real, quietly, without the usual performance, just the two words sitting in the air. Shannon nodded exactly once. He said, "Thank you," and then he picked up his coffee. "Now let me give you the full basketball picture. Because LaMelo Ball to the Los Angeles Lakers is a story with real, substantive, important dimensions that deserve serious analysis beyond the television spectacle that announced it." LaMelo Ball is 24 years old and has spent every year of his professional career in Charlotte, building the kind of individual statistical legacy that would look completely different if it existed in the context of a winning program, rather than an organization that has spent a decade finding new ways to be good enough to be interesting and not good enough to matter in April. His passing is genuinely elite, a vision and creativity that places him among the best ball handlers in the league in terms of the quality and ambition of his assists, the ability to see things happening before they happen, and to make the pass that turns the potential of a play into the reality of a bucket. His scoring is real. He has shown the ability to get 30 points with the consistency of a player who has figured out how to score in volume at the NBA level, not just in isolation moments, but through the full range of offensive situations. He is one of the most naturally gifted offensive players in his generation, and he has been spending those gifts in Charlotte. The fit with the Lakers' current organizational moment is worth understanding specifically because the Lakers are in the kind of transition that franchise rebuilds either navigate well or fail to navigate at all. They are moving from the era defined by LeBron James toward whatever comes next, and whatever comes next requires a player who can become the face of a franchise in a way that satisfies not just the basketball requirements but the cultural and commercial ones that come with being the Los Angeles Lakers. LaMelo Ball, with the visibility, the personality, the generational talent, the specific quality of watchability that he brings, satisfies those requirements in a way that very few available players could. He is not just a good basketball player, he is the kind of basketball player that Los Angeles specifically, with its media ecosystem and its celebrity culture and its appetite for players who are genuinely interesting beyond the box score, gravitates toward and amplifies. The playmaking dimension addresses one of the most persistent and documented problems in recent Lakers basketball. The team has needed for years a point guard who can run an offense with genuine creativity, not just a reliable ball handler who makes the right read, but a creator whose improvisational intelligence makes the offense genuinely hard to prepare for. LaMelo is exactly that. His ability to manipulate the defense with his dribble, to create mismatches through pace changes and misdirection, to find the fourth or fifth option in a play that the defense thought had been defended. These are the skills that transform a good offense into an unpredictable one, and unpredictability in the modern NBA is the condition under which winning happens most reliably. The supporting cast question matters here, and it matters specifically because LaMelo has spent his career in Charlotte being asked to do everything, to create, to score, to lead, to carry, in a context where the players around him could not complete the plays his talent was setting up. In Los Angeles, with a roster that has been built around finding players who can catch and finish and space the floor, LaMelo's playmaking finds its most productive environment. He creates the pass. The pass finds someone who can do something with it. The offense flows, the defense chases, points happen. It sounds simple because the basketball is simple once the right talent is in the right place. Stephen A. spent the final portion of the segment trying to reframe the entire morning as a conversation about whether the Lakers were making the right move, rather than a conversation about whether he had been wrong. Shannon allowed this for a while. He is too smart a television presence to deny the analysis its space, and then said, at the most natural possible moment, "I just want to say one more time, for anyone who missed it, that Stephen A. Smith said the Lakers would never attract LaMelo Ball, and today we are analyzing the acquisition." Shannon did not follow this with anything. He just looked at Stephen A. with the specific expression of a man who has said everything that needed to be said and is willing to let the silence do the rest.